Can I now call upon our distinguished sannyasi guests to speak on some very important subject matter related to spiritual life. We're going to hear about the offences in the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which will impede the disciples' growth in spiritual life. We're also going to hear about the importance of second initiation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So just before I sat down, Sruti Dharma gave me the 10 offences to read, just in case I forget. Actually, I was travelling for a long time. I didn't have a chance. Usually in the morning programme we recite the 10 offences, and it must have been for at least 6 months I never had a chance to do that. And I went to one temple and we were going round in turn reciting the 10 offences, and I forgot.
That's because it's all in Russian where you go.
So, thank you, Shruti Prabhu. The first offence, first of all, 10 offences means that there's a reason. And in conditioned life, where, the heart is contaminated. And the process of devotional service is to take away that contamination, and then that original dormant love for Krishna will be manifest. So we have to know what, as well as following the 4 regulative principles and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, there are practical things we have to do every day in our lives to prevent us from contaminating the heart. And the first offence is to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord. So this blasphemy of devotees, it's actually it's called aparad. It's against the nature of devotional service. So that's why maybe it's put in the first position that the process of material life is to get on with our own thing, I, me and mine. But in spiritual life it's completely different. And so from the very beginning we have to learn how to tolerate in the association of devotees. There's there's an artist coming from sin. There's an artist coming from pious activities, and there's an artist coming from bhakti. Even in bhakti we may commit mistakes. But the last one is aparad. And the other 3 anarthas, or types of anarthas, are very quickly cleared in devotional service compared to the last one. The last one is only complete, absolute they call it. It's only completely cleared from the heart when we actually get Krishna's darshan. So we can just understand how important it is to understand this first offence, or avoid this first offence. Next is to take the names of the demigods to be equal or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So there's 2 sides to that. We take it as being equal, and that means that we minimise Krishna's position. We see Krishna to be an ordinary person if we do that. And the other one to be different from means that we become illusioned, that we think that there's things separate from Krishna. The demigods are separate individuals who we can worship. So both things are actually vital, that we don't become confused about that. It may not be so much for Western devotees, more for those who are more genned up in the Vedic process. But still there's a subtle tendency to sometimes do that. The next one is to disobey the order of the spiritual master or the previous acharyas. So the very purpose of initiation is that we're promising to follow the instructions of the previous acharyas, and especially their representative, the spiritual master. And so it behooves us to really understand that that's what we should do. Sometimes we may get instructions which are not necessarily, we think, relevant to us or important in our devotional service. But the spiritual master is expert in understanding the nature of the disciple, and therefore he gives instruction according to that nature. So even though sometimes it goes against the grain, we should still see that actually the spiritual master's in the heart of the super soul is in the heart of the spiritual master, and he's also in my heart. So he knows just how to direct me through that medium. The fourth offence is to blaspheme the Vedic literatures, or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. So we've had blasphemy of Guru, or disobeyed in the order of the spiritual master, and also now we have Shastra, Sadhu and Guru, now Shastra. So the Shastras are like our, they keep us on the road. Many times in devotional service we take this duty and this service to read as being secondary. But actually it's the most important thing, because I give the example of how we go on a sea voyage. Now they probably use, so many electronic means to plot the course. But previously they used to use a theodolite, I think they call it, or is it a sextant? Yeah. And so they would, know where they're going. They would plot the course according to this sextant by using the stars at night, maybe the sun in the daytime. And then after a few hours they would take another reading, and then to the surprise they would be way off course. They'd be plot this course straight and they would be somewhere over here. And so they would replot and they'd come back on course again. And then after a time they'd replot and they'd keep having to adjust. So this is Shastra. When we're hearing Shastra every day, especially Bhagavatam class, there's something relevant to us which will help us during the day. And if we neglect hearing, we start to, subtly start to drift away from the, the straight and narrow process of devotional service. It's called, it's like osmosis. Osmosis is a biological term. Have we got any biologists in class today? Osmosis means we start to take on the nature of our surroundings. So the Shastra there to, reassert our real situation. Then we have 5. So taking the glories to be imagination, the glories of chanting the holy name. So we can't underestimate this, because this chanting is actually coming from Goloka Vrindavan. It's not a material sound vibration. And to minimize that means that maybe we're not chanting in the proper mood. So it's the spiritual master's duty to remind us that, it's the consciousness in which we chant the holy name. And when we learn to chant in good consciousness, then we can feel the full power of the holy name. And then the tendency to minimize it as a material thing is very much diminished. Number 6 is the given interpretation on the chanting of the holy name. So it's very similar to the previous one, that we see it as a material sound vibration, or we start to interpret it according to our particular situation and try to make progress that way, but this is not advised. Next is 7 is to commit sinful activities on chanting the holy name of the Lord. So this is the biggest offence, because then we're starting to use the holy name. We're not avoiding chanting with attention or minimizing its power, but we're starting to use the holy name for our material sense gratification. So this is described as the biggest offence. If we do that, then it's very dangerous in our devotional service. And we can very subtly start to do that very easily by minimizing the process of devotional service and the association of devotees. So then we come to the 8th offence. Chanting is the karma kanda activity. So in spiritual life, in material life, it's just hedonism. We do what we want, when we want, where we want. But when we take to a spiritual progress, or the inroads to a spiritual progress, then there's a form of activity called karma kanda. And karma kanda means we start to follow the Shastras in order to fulfill our desires. And because there's some, there's some token of the Supreme Lord being in those instructions, then we start to get a spiritual inclination. So because we're materially motivated very often in our association in this material world, it's very difficult to immediately give up that tendency. So sometimes we can think of the holy name as being beneficial for us materially. I've heard devotees sometimes say, if they chant the holy names nicely, the day will go very nicely. Well, actually, this is a big mistake. The day may go worse than ever. But the holy names is giving us the ability to deal with it. So 9 is to instruct the faithless about the glories of the holy name. So Krishna is very careful about giving instruction. All the way through the Srimad Bhagavatam, his first-class devotee Narada Muni is very careful about giving instruction, even to those who are considered elevated in human life. He preaches indirectly so that they don't take offence. Krishna, when he doesn't force anybody to do anything, we all have free will. He always maintains that we have free will. So when a devotee starts to impose, thinking that everybody should become Krishna conscious, and we're going to give Krishna conscious, even though we don't have their sanction, then we start to create another offence. So we should be very careful that we learn the art of dealing with society in such a way that we attract them, but we don't put them off by pushing Krishna consciousness. The last offence is not to have complete faith in chanting and to maintain material attachments. When we're chanting, we should be completely convinced that this is all I really have to do if I want to perfect my life. If we, maximize our chanting and we focus on the holy name with the proper mood, then everything will start to actually fall into place. This is the most important thing. So, give quality time for chanting. There's always a tendency to, maybe we can fit the chanting in here if we're very busy, but we should try and give quality time to the chanting, and then everything will start to work nicely. So that's the 10 offences. And the last one they sometimes mention is, to being attentive. So, like I've just been saying, if we're not attentive to the holy name, then the tendency is that we'll remain in material consciousness, and in that kind of consciousness, then we start to commit these 10 offences we've just been speaking about. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.